You know that scent. You're over at a buddy's place or maybe poking around an estate sale, and you crack open an old, heavy upright safe. The smell hits you instantly. It's a mix of Hoppa's No. 9, vintage gun oil, and honest history. That's the smell of reality, folks. It's a wake-up call reminding us that the modern gun industry has been feeding us a line for years. There's this persistent myth in American hunting circles, driven by those high-gloss magazine spreads and the latest influencer hype, that if you aren't carrying a space-age chassis rifle covered in Picatinny rails and polymer, you aren't a real marksman. They just keep finding ways to reinvent the wheel, slapping a new coat of paint on it, and charging you double for the privilege. But if you spend any real time on a firing line, or talk to the old-timers who've been putting meat on the table for decades, they'll give you the truth straight up. The hardware that actually built our hunting heritage isn't sitting on the new arrivals rack. It's the steel and walnut gathering dust in the back of the closet. I'm seeing a real shift lately. Hunters are walking away from the plastic-tastic trend and reaching for the iron their grandfathers trusted. These are rifles with honest-to-God character. Scratches in the wood that represent real miles in the mountains. Machines built back when American manufacturing was measured by how many generations it would last, not by the next quarterly earnings report. Tonight, right here on the Second Amendment Sentinel, we're stripping it back to the essentials. We're breaking down 5 legendary rifles that simply refuse to fade away. They didn't give an inch to the plastic revolution. They just held their ground until the rest of the world caught back up. Number 5. The Remington Model 760 Gamemaster. Kicking things off at number 5 is a piece of American engineering that crawled out of the 1950s and still runs circles around these modern bolt guns. The Remington Model 760 Gamemaster. Imagine the scenario. You're ghosting through a thick stand of timber in late November. The air is so crisp it feels like it's cutting your lungs. Out of nowhere, a buck explodes from the brush 30 yards out. Boom. You take the shot, but he's still moving. In that moment, you need a follow-up, and you need it yesterday. You don't have the luxury of working a clunky bolt or hoping the gun gods are on your side. This is exactly where the 760 earns its keep. It's a pump-action rifle, essentially the legendary Remington 870 shotgun redesigned to sling rifle lead. When you chamber this thing in a serious round like the 30-06, it becomes the ultimate tool for a hunter operating on pure adrenaline. People often forget that a well-worn pump action is arguably the fastest manual cycling system on the planet, second only to a semi-auto. It's got a 22-inch barrel and tips the scales at about 7.5 pounds. It swings with zero effort and points as naturally as your own finger. You're looking at anchoring game with total confidence out to 200 yards. You can find these on the used market for $500 to $600, which absolutely nukes the argument that you need $2,000 to fill a freezer. But it's the tactile experience that wins you over. That rich walnut stock. That crossbolt safety that clicks with absolute authority. It's a breeze to field strip on a tailgate. In the deer woods, they call this the faithful dog. It just works, every single time. Now, full disclosure, it isn't perfect. Some of those older builds have plastic dust covers, or trigger guards that can show their age and crack. And if you treat a 30-06 pump like a range toy, that recoil is going to give you a very firm wake-up call. But look at the forums. Guys are pulling these out of the safe, dusting them off, and dropping trophy bucks like it's 1955 all over again. Number 4. The Savage Model 99. If you think the pump gun is a classic, just wait until you see our number 4. Imagine a rifle designed in the 19th century that's actually more sophisticated than half the stuff on the shelves today. I'm talking about the Savage Model 99. If you spend your time hunting the heavy timber, you understand why this rifle is having a massive resurgence. The 99 didn't just show up to the lever action party. It crashed through the front door and rewrote the rulebook. Back in the late 1800s, while everyone else was stuck with tube magazines and round-nosed bullets, Savage released a hammerless design featuring a rotary magazine. That rotary mag was a stroke of absolute genius. It allowed hunters to use Spitzer bullets, those pointy aerodynamic projectiles, without the risk of a tip setting off a primer in a tube under recoil. That was a total game changer for the era. Depending on your configuration, it weighs in between 6.5 and 8 pounds. With a 20-inch barrel, this rifle feels like a literal extension of your body. It was born for those split-second snapshots in deep cover where a deer can vanish in a heartbeat. 150 yards? That's easy money for this platform. Whether you're running iron sights or a magnified optic, it doesn't care. And that lever throw? It isn't some clunky mechanical mess. It's functional art. Cycling it feels like closing the heavy door on a bank vault. You can usually find these in the $800 to $1,200 range. And if you can track down a takedown model, you can split it in half, throw it in a rucksack, hike 10 miles into the backcountry, and reassemble it without losing your zero. Good luck trying that with your budget-friendly modern rifle. Number 3. The Ruger M77. Sliding into our number 3 spot is a rifle that never needed a flashy marketing campaign to prove its worth. The Ruger M77 Hawkeye. This is a bolt gun designed by people who actually spend their time in the woods, not by engineers staring at spreadsheets. This is a pure-blood rifle, steel and walnut. You won't find any plastic bottom metal here. No corners were cut to save a few pennies or a few ounces. It features a controlled round feed system with a massive Mauser-style claw extractor. For those of us who have been in the thick of it, that claw is pure peace of mind. It locks onto that cartridge rim and doesn't let go until you tell it to. It's built with a cold hammer-forged barrel that's as tough as a railroad spike. While the rest of the industry went chasing chassis systems and skeletonized stocks, the Hawkeye just stayed in its lane. It kept doing the one thing it was designed for, delivering dead reliable performance in the field. Hunters are coming back to the M77 because they've realized that classic doesn't mean outdated. It means battle-proven. Number 2. The Winchester Model 70. Coming in at number 2 is a rifle that, let's be honest, never actually gave up the crown. The Winchester Model 70. Specifically, we're talking about anything built with that legendary pre-64 spirit. There's a reason this is called the rifleman's rifle. It is the absolute gold standard by which every other bolt-action rifle on Earth is measured. When you cycle the bolt on a Model 70, it feels like it's gliding on ball bearings. The receiver is precision machined from a solid block of steel. The trigger breaks like a thin glass rod. Zero creep, zero grit, just a crisp, clean break. While other manufacturers were figuring out how to make rifles cheaper, Winchester was focused on making them right. It utilizes that same controlled round feed logic we mentioned earlier. This isn't a rifle you just buy for yourself. This is a rifle you buy for your grandkids. It'll stay in your family longer than the deed to your house. In an era of disposable, use it and lose it consumer goods, that kind of permanence is a powerful thing. Number 1. The Remington Model 788. And finally, taking the top spot, this is the ultimate comeback kid. A rifle that was ignored for years but is finally getting the massive respect it deserves. The Remington Model 788. Produced from 1967 to 1980, this was originally marketed as a budget-friendly, working-class gun. But a funny thing happened on the way to the range. It turned out the 788 was actually more accurate than the high-end rifles Remington was trying to sell. Here's the deal. You're out on varmint duty or tucked into a tight deer blind. You need something maneuverable. The 788 has a compact 20-inch barrel and weighs less than 7 pounds. It's lightning fast. But the real magic is inside the action. It utilizes rear locking lugs, which allows for a very short, very fast bolt throw and an incredibly stiff receiver. In the world of ballistics, stiffness equals accuracy. I'm talking sub-MOA groups right out of the box. No custom bedding, no expensive tuning, just a flat-out tack driver. You can still snag these for around $400, which is a total steal for high-grade American steel. It uses a detachable box magazine so you don't have to fumble with a floor plate in the snow or the mud. Now let's be real about the quirks. It's a push-feed action, so if you short-stroke it, you might run into a stovepipe. The factory trigger usually has a bit of creep, but a competent gunsmith can stone that out in no time. And since production stopped over 40 years ago, finding spare parts can be a bit of a treasure hunt. But those minor hurdles haven't slowed down the resurgence. From the local gun shows to the online forums, people are hunting these down like buried treasure. It's a no-nonsense precision tool that proves you don't need a $5,000 custom rig to hit the X-ring. The Remington 788 isn't about the flash. It's a cold-blooded performer, and that is why it sits at number 1. All right, folks, that's the roster. As an expert who has spent a lot of time on both sides of the gun counter, I can tell you, These rifles represent an era of craftsmanship we might never see again. But I want to hear from you. Do you have one of these legends locked away in your safe? Or did I leave out a classic that you think deserves a spot on the list? Drop a comment down below. I make it a point to read every single one of them. If you found value in this breakdown, do me a favor and smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a briefing. Train hard, stay safe, and I'll see you out on the range. Would you like me to do a deep dive into the specific ballistic performance of the .30-06 versus the .308 in these classic platforms?